In a bold move that could significantly impact your finances, President Donald Trump has announced plans to implement a staggering 100% tariff on imported computer chips. This decision has raised alarms among experts, who caution that it may force companies to either scale back their production or increase prices for consumers. While the specifics of this tariff are still unclear, the potential inflationary effects may not be as severe as those caused by previous tariffs. However, the implications of this new tariff could extend to a vast array of products, including smartphones, laptops, automobiles, and video game consoles. Zach Rogers, an associate professor specializing in operations and supply chain management at Colorado State University, emphasizes the ubiquity of chips in modern technology. If you consider the industry's reliant on chips, it's nearly everything. You likely interact with at least 100 chips in your daily activities, he explains. So how exactly will this computer chip tariff function? Trump revealed the new tariff during an event at the Oval Office on August 6, indicating that there would be exceptions for companies that commit to manufacturing chips domestically. However, many details remain elusive, such as the effective date of the tariff and its specific impact on products that utilize chips, like laptops. Jason Miller, a professor of supply chain management at Michigan State University, points out, there are numerous caveats to consider. Until we have clarity on the specific harmonized system codes that will be affected, we cannot fully grasp the ramifications of this tariff. Currently, the United States produces a substantial amount of semiconductors, exporting approximately $58 billion worth annually, according to data from the Census Bureau. However, Miller notes that the U.S. excels in manufacturing high-end chips, while lower-end chips are often imported from countries like Malaysia, and the most advanced chips come from Taiwan. In total, the U.S. imports around $60 billion worth of semiconductors each year. Miller further explains, the U.S. is not as cost-effective in producing lower-end, generic semiconductors, such as those used in household appliances like refrigerators. It's more logical for us to focus on areas where we have a competitive edge, which is in higher-end products. Rogers believes that expanding chip production in the U.S. is a sensible strategy, especially given the progress made in recent years, particularly under the CHIPS and Science Act signed by former President Joe Biden in 2022. However, he cautions that ramping up chip manufacturing through new facilities and a better trained workforce will take time. He agrees that the U.S. should concentrate on producing higher-end chips. We are on the right path, but it's a long journey. We can't quickly scale up to meet our own demand, Rogers states. If we impose these costs on companies, it could actually hinder the progress we're making. What does this mean for consumer prices? Experts consulted by USA Today suggest that the increased costs associated with chip imports may not hit manufacturers as hard as other tariffs, such as the 50% tariff on steel and aluminum or the 25% auto tariffs. Nevertheless, this new tariff could add additional strain on companies that are already grappling with rising import costs. Miller remarks, this is not deflationary by any means. However, it's genuinely impossible to predict the consumer inflationary effects until we have more detailed information. John Mitchell, the president and CEO of the Global Electronics Association, a trade group for the global electronics sector, anticipates that these tariffs will lead to higher prices for products like laptops, appliances, vehicles, and medical devices. He notes, over 60% of our member companies report that previous tariffs have increased their costs and delayed production. For certain items, such as cars, chips represent only a small fraction of the overall production costs. However, Ivan Drury, director of insights at the automotive research site Edmunds, describes the tariff as yet another blow to automakers, who are already facing a 25% auto tariff. Automakers have reported significant financial impacts from tariffs. For instance, General Motors announced in July that tariffs cost the company over $1 billion in the second quarter. While Stellantis expects tariffs to result in approximately $1.7 billion in costs this year, Drury likens the situation to 1,000 cuts leading to a slow demise. He adds that thus far, automakers have managed to avoid passing these tariff costs on to consumers, but he questions how long this can continue. Currently, we're not seeing these costs reflected in prices, he notes. However, shareholders won't tolerate this situation indefinitely. Used car owners might face particularly steep challenges due to the computer chip tariff, as repair costs could rise. Repair shops may be more inclined to transfer these increased costs directly to customers, which could also affect insurance premiums, as insurers would need to cover higher repair expenses. Drury warns of a potential snowball effect, stating, "While it hasn't happened yet, we know that eventually something will give." Another concern for consumers is the possibility of product shortages resulting from the chip tariffs. The U.S. has already experienced this issue during the semiconductor chip shortage that occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic, which severely limited consumers' ability to purchase new cars, laptops, and gaming consoles. Although a semiconductor tariff is not expected to cause shortages on the same scale, Rogers cautions that some companies may reduce production if import costs rise. For example, Stellantis has already halted production at certain plants to avoid incurring tariffs, contributing to a 6% year-over-year decline in car shipments as of the second quarter. "I believe we could see shortages across various sectors," Rogers warns. "While it may not be as severe as in 2021, when we couldn't obtain chips, this time we'll simply be paying more for them. If we pay more, we will likely buy less." What are your thoughts on this tariff? Do you believe it will lead to significant price increases or shortages? Share your opinions in the comments below.